Honorable Chief Guest, Federal Minister for Energy, Umar Ayub Khan, Director General NEMA, Vice Admiral Abdul Aleem, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. There are two ways to approach security. Firstly, it's called state-centric approach to national security, and the second is called the human-centric approach to national security. The state-centric approach basically deals with the protection of state. This approach places the state at the center of securitization agenda and devotes maximum amount of resources available to state on protection of state, control, and use of military force. On the other hand, human security approach places human interest, the people's interest, at the center of securitization process. It calls for a profound transformation, profound shift in thinking from missiles, tanks, submarines to the interest of people. It assumes that if people are well fed, if people feel safe and secure with regards to their property and self-respect, they become the first line of defense against any internal or external threats. Critiques of Pakistan's securitization processes, they often accuse the governing elite of Pakistan for giving exclusive focus on state-centric approach and dedicating maximum amount of resources to protect state and to control and use the military force. I would argue it's too simplistic. If you look at Pakistan's national security agenda since 1947, it has fluctuated with regional and international developments, improvising as the situation changes. And interestingly, Pakistan has done exceptionally well on Human Development Index during the military regimes. It itself is a separate topic of debate, but a heated debate goes on not only at the societal level, but in the different compartments of state, vying for influence, those who refer to a human-centric approach and those who are subscribing to a state-centricism. Let us make one point clear, that these two approaches, they do not come at the cost of one or the other. They rather complement each other. Barry Buzan, who was the architecture of the human security paradigm, he identified 5 sectors of security and kept military security at the top of those 5 sectors, followed by economic security, political security, societal security, and environmental security. So at the state level as well as the societal level, we should give up this tendency of assuming binary views, looking at security in a black and white manner. It's a comprehensive agenda that combines both state and human centricism. When we come to the maritime domain, it is only recently that we have started securitizing the ocean. It is only recently, I would say, that we have realized the immense economic potential of the ocean. And while we securitize the oceans, it is very important that we strike a fine balance between human and state centricism. And this synergy at the state level would complement Pakistan's national security agenda to fight against traditional and non-traditional security threats. Well, it's easier said than done. There's a reason that NTS is called idealistic. But at least theoretically, government of Pakistan seems cognizant of elements related to human security. Take, for example, the recent maritime economic concept released last year by the PTI government, Look at the National Maritime Security Policy, which is yet to be approved, still in the process of deliberations. It also, both documents, they discuss, they consider the elements related to human security, such as the protection of environment, the welfare of coastal communities, sustainable developments at sea, the welfare of the coastal people, etc. Theoretically, we are fine, but practically, its manifestation, it's different, and the facts on ground, they guide us to a different conclusion, that perhaps the state or the government of Pakistan is not paying adequate attention to the human side of securitization of the ocean. Take, for example, the two major coastal cities of Pakistan, Karachi, the established hub, Gwadar, the emerging hub. In Global Livability Index, Karachi ranks among the below 10 countries, or cities of the world. That the living conditions of Karachi are among the worst. This livability index takes into account people's access to, of course, civic infrastructure, health, education, governance, etc. Situation in Gwadar, I would say it's not different at all, where 95% people, they do not have access to clean drinking water. When I was in Gwadar, perhaps 2 years ago, I spoke to the fishermen community there and asked them about the benefits of China-Pakistan economic corridor that it would have brought to the people of Gwadar. And one fisherman told me that even today, we have to spend 8,000 to 10,000 rupees just to manage the clean drinking water. Well, 5 desalination plants are planned in Gwadar. One is inaugurated, but the progress on the 4 is quite slow, to say the least. When it comes to health facilities, in Gwadar, most of the patients die when they are en route to some major city to avail the health facilities there. And then, resultantly, both Karachi and Gwadar, they have become the hubs of ethnocentric violence, separatist tendencies. Why? Because theoretically and practically there is a direct correlation between the sense of deprivation and terrorism, militancy, ethnocentrism, whatever you call. So to resolve this human state centric paradox, we should first try to gauge whether Pakistan possesses the key ingredients which are important to make this country a maritime, economic, and military power. In this regard, the work of Alfred Thayer Mahan, the father of naval strategy, could come quite handy. Alfred Thayer Mahan advocated that if a state is endowed with 6 elements, it is bound to become a maritime power, both in military and economic domain. And those 6 elements were the geographic position of the coastal area or of the country. Second was naturally good ports. Third was territorial waters. Fourth element was people, quantity of people. The fifth element was quality of people living along the shores. Sixth, the government system. When we look at those 6 elements of naval power, Pakistan is endowed with 5. It's the 6th area, which is the weak link of Pakistan's maritime strategy, Pakistan maritime securitization, the government systems. You talk about the geographic location of Pakistan or the Pakistani ports. Who doesn't know that the 40% of world's energy supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz, where Gwadar is located? The natural ports, compare Gwadar with any regional port in South Asia, you would find that naturally Gwadar can be termed as a naturally endowed port that can withstand the tough monsoon seasons, that provides you the depth that is functional throughout the year. And then the size of territorial water, look at the exclusive economic zones of Pakistan. 240,000 square kilometers, only second in size to Balochistan. And then the people living along the shores. Our coastal line divided into Sindh and Makran, these people have been using ocean. When you talk to them, ocean is their mother. That is the type of relation they enjoy with the ocean. They know how to ford the seas, how to use it, not only for the personal growth and development, but also for the national development as well. For centuries, they have been trading with Middle East, they have been trading with Africa, they have been trading with Europe. We need not to train them how to use ocean. The quantity of people, the Makran coastal line of Pakistan, when we talk about development in Pakistan, the state often comes with an excuse that because of overpopulation of Karachi, we find it hard to develop it. But that's not the case with Makran coast. The entire coast is sparsely populated, which provides the state an ample space to develop it. And then finally, when we talk about the government system, like I said, that is the weak point. Recently, yes, there is an emphasis by the PTI government. Honorable Prime Minister Imran Khan declared 2020 the year of blue economy. But paradoxically, in the same year, the budget for Ministry of Maritime Affairs went down. So, what are the takeaways can be done? First, of course, it is to fix the sixth weak link in Pakistan's maritime strategy. How can we do that? That is through enhancing awareness on the importance of maritime security, which, thank God, has started now. There are a number of institutions, including NEMA, which are now working to educate not only the masses, but also the policymakers on how to tap in the importance of the sea, how to untap the economic potential of the seas, and how to protect the sea in traditional and non-traditional domains. Secondly, what we need to do is, we need to get Alfred Thayer Mahan accurate. He is the most misunderstood naval strategist in Pakistan. You read any thesis on maritime strategy in Pakistan, most of them, they start with, Mahan said, whosoever controls Indian Ocean controls the world. He never said that. He first advocated about establishing economic interests in the ocean and then building on that the maritime or naval capacity. So an accurate understanding of Alfred Thayer Mahan can help us securitize the sea in the right manner. Thirdly, the role of corporate responsibility funds. When China started securitizing oceans, and it was only recently, perhaps in 2004. Before that, in the long history of China, China, like us, was also obsessed with land-based threats because most of the threats to China as well also emanated from land since times immemorial. But it was only in 2004 or 5 China realized that we need to securitize the ocean. They started, and within 15 years, China did wonders. And one important factor, of course, besides the centralization of command, was the role that the commercial entities operating in maritime domain played through corporate responsibility funds. So these are the few takeaways that we can learn, and I would be happy to discuss that in the follow-up seminar in April with more details. I thank you very much for your attention.